welcome back to the Bayball channel for another episode of Quick Strikes. The Lightning once again defeating the Chicago Blackhawks, this time by a final score of 4-1. A disrupt the night matinee game where it wasn't really disrupt the night, but disrupt the afternoon. The Lightning wearing their black jerseys. Jake, you're wearing one of those, one of the black hats as well. How are you doing tonight?
Doing great, Michael. Another win, another day where the Lightning actually played a pretty dominant game for the most part. They played really well overall. 3-game win streak now, heading to take on the Florida Panthers today. By the time you all are seeing this video, so lots to be happy about in this game, though. So always good to have a good game for the Bolts. Can't wait to get into it.
Yeah, so before we get into the game itself, one of the things that I had noticed when I was watching the game that I think needs to be discussed is the NHL broadcast unreliance when it comes to being able to show face-offs. Now, I talked about face-offs on the channel, either good or bad for the Lightning for the most part, but I think that their refusal to show the face-offs themselves when they're showing replays or they're just late to the game in terms of being able to show it is really detrimental to the game. It is part of the game. You have people that are face-off specialists that do quite well at it. I can think of two off the top of my head: Ross Colton and Mitchell Stevens. Both of those guys have been fantastic in the face-off dot since they've come to the Lightning. That's been their primary focus. You're not allowing people to showcase their skill when you don't allow other people, other viewers to watch them. And it seems like only the 3,800 in the stadium can watch this. And it's not just a Fox Sports thing, it's an NBC thing. It's whenever the team is on USA Today or USA Network or anything like that. Like, this is a constant problem in hockey media, not just in Fox Sports. I really think it needs to be corrected.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you want to show the entire game when it comes to any sport that you're broadcasting. I mean, being every little part, any sports fan would know that those little parts of the game, like face-offs or puck battles in the corner, are extremely important. They sometimes will make the key parts of a play that creates that highlight reel of a goal sometimes. Now, I do have a little more sympathy, I think, for Fox Sports and programs. I'm not going to say NBC because I really don't have any sympathy for them. But it is a tough job doing broadcasting and getting all those production trucks and cutting back and forth. There's a lot that goes into these types of productions. So it's not the easiest thing in the world. But I understand where you're coming from. I mean, when you're not able to see those face-offs constantly, and as a fan, you understand how important they are and the players that are good at them. It's definitely something that they could address and fix. But, I do also understand on the other side of the coin to kind of play devil's advocate here. I know how tough that can be and how much goes into that kind of stuff. And, mistakes do happen sometimes. But if it's an overwhelming thing, then that becomes a problem.
Well, it's not just something that I've noticed, but I have looked at a couple of other YouTube videos where people have talked about it and they've done the math, and the channels themselves are missing anywhere from 30 to 50% of the face-offs in a given game, which is unacceptable, to be quite honest with you. Like, that is what I'm concerned about. If you miss 5 to 10%, it's understandable. You're trying to show replays, you're trying to grow the game in different ways, and maybe you sacrifice a couple of face-offs. But in certain situations, we've seen that they have been showing a replay and they've missed a face-off, and the face-off has led directly to a goal off of the face-off, which that means that they don't get to see how the play developed. Originally, they have to wait for the replay. And there's tons of reasons that the NHL has a problem when it comes to their broadcasting in terms of somebody sitting in a director's chair. But this is one that I found the most egregious tonight.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that. It's something personally I haven't noticed too much, maybe because I'm just kind of watching a lot more casually. But I'd love to hear from everybody in the comments down below too. What do you guys think? Is this something you notice? Am I just missing it here? I'd love to know if you think this has been a major problem that you've noticed as well and they need to fix. But hopefully they do get it right, because 50% is a lot. That's definitely a problem, and needs to be fixed. I did miss some of games. I was kind of out and in with today's game, so that may be why I didn't notice as much today. But yeah, 50% is definitely way too high. But hopefully they can fix it. But luckily, the Bolts played a really good game today, and maybe that's why I didn't notice it, because I was very frustrated with the on ice performance.
Yeah, I mean, guys, feel free to let me know in the comments if I'm just speaking, whatever. Like, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm totally fr- uh, free to admit that I've been wrong before. But going from my little rant to the game itself, the Lightning played a decent game. You mentioned when you were doing your intro that they played a pretty dominant game. I would tend to disagree, but there were some players I thought that had a completely dominant game. And number one, the biggest positive of tonight's game, stars one, two, and three, and a new franchise holder when it comes to a certain franchise record, Andre Vasilevsky. Vasilevsky with his 11th straight win, setting the Tampa Bay Lightning's goalie record, or tying their goalie record for most consecutive wins with Louis Domingue, who set the record back in 2018, 2019. Finally, funny enough, it was when Vasilevsky was injured that that Domingue set that record. Jake, an unbelievable game from the NHL's best goaltender.
Yeah, it's just amazing how well he performs night in and night out. This was no exception. He was absolutely outstanding. Was really close to that shutout too. Unfortunately, DeBrincat decided to ruin it for us, but he definitely deserved it. He made some fantastic saves when he needed to. Played really good, and he's a big part of the reason the Lightning are sometimes able to score as many goals they did. Like, you look at that second period, and I know a lot of Lightning fans would say it was a really one of their worst periods in this game, but because of Vasilevsky, he was able to play so well and keep those pucks in the net, he's able to keep that game flow going. And the Lightning are able to pick up three eventual goals in that period, which is ultimately one of that was one of the, I think, best periods, because they got the three goals and Vasi played so well, kept the Blackhawks off of them. He's just fantastic. I mean, I really have a hard time talking about it, because there's what else is there for me to say? He's just so good. The flexibility that he's able to bring and stretch across from pole to pole basically, and stop almost any shot that the Blackhawks throw his way is absolutely unbelievable. And I think, Michael, we said in the last game recap, we said Vasilevsky seems frustrated right now, and he's going to come out and play one of his best games. And sure enough, that's exactly what he did. Vasilevsky is just such a big competitor. He's always looking to be better and better, and it just seems like he keeps breaking that ceiling of what we expect him to do, and it's already so high. So Vasilevsky, absolutely fantastic, no question about it. He is such a good goaltender. One thing that surprised me, Michael, is that Vasilevsky actually started tonight. I fully expected McElhinney to get this start against Chicago, because, listen, I love McElhinney, and I try to defend him as much as I can, but I would have expected McElhinney to take on Chicago, who's not as good of a team, and Vasi go up against Florida, who is currently actually just fell to number three, I think, in the league. They're tied with the Washington Capitals in the league standings, but you'd think Vasi would get that start, but John Cooper, obviously, in the coaching staff decided to throw Vasi in there, definitely secure that 2 points. And I mean, he played a great game, though.
Yeah. So when Curtis McElhinney was not announced as the starter and Vasilevsky was on the ice for pregame warmups, I actually felt the same way. I was kind of confused when it came to, why wouldn't you put in, this is no diss to McElhinney, your worst out of the two goalies uh, in this game where you're playing the worst out of the two opponents on the back to back. I will say, though, as the game went on, it made a lot of sense because Chicago, say what you want about their faults, and they have a lot. Their offense is very, very talented. And they had a lot of chances, specifically in that second period, multiple 2-on-ones, multiple breakaways, multiple opportunities off of defensive turnovers from the Lightning, which was a major problem for them, especially in the second. And Vasilevsky made saves that I don't think Curtis McElhinney would have made. And when somebody asked me about that, and I apologize, I don't remember who it was during the intermission, they said, well, what would the score be if it was an average goalie in net? And I think Curtis McElhinney is your average backup. said probably would be 4-3. And there's only two guys in the entire league that can hold Chicago to 0 goals with that sort of outburst by the Blackhawks. Andre Vasilevsky, Connor Hellebuck. Connor Hellebuck is dragging the Winnipeg Jets to the playoffs right now. Vasilevsky is dragging the Lightning out of so many of the problems that they've had. So a really, really solid performance by Vasilevsky. And I think that tomorrow's game against Florida, and we'll get to that later, but I think it's going to push Curtis McElhinney a little bit more. There is something that I would like to see that Coach Cooper accomplish with his rest of his coaching staff. I don't know if he's going to be able to do it tomorrow, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Jake, a lot of forwards had pretty decent games. No one line really dominated, but there were a lot of guys in particular that had really solid games. What specific forward stood out to you? And I'll pick another one when you're done talking about yours. But which one stood out to you as having the best game?
Oh man, well, best is hard to say. You're right. There are a lot of forwards that had really good games. I think one of those guys was Yanni Gord. I thought he played an excellent game today, especially on his goal. That was a fantastic goal he scored. The display of power and speed he can put on at a in instance notice is outstanding. He was able to drive right in front of the net, fending off a Blackhawks defender, get that shot on with one hand, and then get the rebound and stick with it and ultimately pick up that goal. And Yanni Gord is also just such a competitor when it comes to physicality and stuff like that. I thought he had a great game today. So really happy with Yanni Gord's performance for me personally.
Yeah, I thought Yanni Gord was awesome. And when you see a guy like Gord, who I believe he's 5'8" or 5'9", he's not very tall. I've taken a photo with him and I was right up there with Yanni Gord, and I'm 5'7". So that just goes to show you he's not the biggest guy, but definitely is a power forward type player. In terms of who I thought had the best type of game, by the way, Yanni Gord up to 10 goals. Let's not forget that Yanni Gourde had 10 goals all of last season as well. No, he went on that big goalless drought, but show up the haters, I guess. Very happy for Gord. In terms of who I thought had the best game from the forwards perspective, I thought Anthony Cirelli was awesome tonight. There was one shift in particular where his line mates weren't really doing their thing in terms of generating chances, but Anthony Cirelli was right there. He had multiple diving plays. He really tried to attack the puck. He is the most important guy to the Lightning's offense, not necessarily in a skill perspective, but he's probably, besides maybe Braden Point, the hardest worker on the offensive side of things. And he doesn't always get his way, but when he does, he has some fantastic plays. The breakaway-ish goal that they had on 4 in the second period was one of the nicest goals you'll see out of Anthony Cirelli's career. A lot of that had to do with the passing between Hedman, Sergachev, and Cirelli, but Cirelli has the mitts, and we don't usually get to see that often, but when we do, it's a thing of beauty. So Cirelli's up to 9 goals already this season, which is a lot for him. And with the Lightning in general, they're getting contributions from guys that, maybe last season you wouldn't normally expect. Yanni Gord, he's tied his goal total from last season. Andre Palat, he's just dominated, which is something that I don't think you would expect. I think you would expect him to do well. I don't think you would expect him to necessarily dominate a game. Anthony Cirelli has been awesome. He's tied for fifth, or he has sole possession of fifth actually in goals, and Matthew Joseph with 7 goals in seventh place. Awesome stuff from the forwards.
Absolutely, no question about it. Sorelli's fantastic. He is one of those guys that has a lot of dedication, like Braden Point, as you mentioned, and he's really good on the penalty kills a lot as well. Hasn't been as much this year, I don't think, but in years past as well, he's been really good on the penalty kill because of his hustle. He's got such a good hustle and has a lot of speed to him as well. He was fantastic. Another forward that I think deserves a shout out, Michael. I'm not sure if you're going to agree with me on this, but I thought Steven Stamkos played a good game. He had a goal and assist today. Granted, the goal did come on the power play, but still, that's you got to get it done at the end of the day and put the puck in the back of the net. Stamkos did. So I thought he played a pretty decent game as well. But then going from the forward side to the defenseman side of things, Victor Hedman played another really good game today. He was the second star, I believe, for you and for the media, if I'm not mistaken. It definitely was for the media. But Victor Hedman, 3 assists today. I know they were secondary assists, but still, Hedman, as always, played another great game.
Yeah, he, I believe, tied the record for the most assists in a period in Tampa Bay Lightning history. It had been
Uh,
done 25 or 26 times up to that point. The specific Brian Burns tweet, you know, you can find it online, but it was the first time since Braden Point had done it in a period, and that was in a win against, I think it was Vancouver. It's been a long time since I saw the tweet itself, but a great game from Victor Hedman. He didn't have to make those wow plays that you would necessarily think of when you think of Victor Hedman in defense, but he was a solid defensive presence. He was really good in the offensive zone. Him pairing with Mikhail Sergachev is something that I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of. Like, I think Sergachev is better suited for his left side, and playing on his offside can generate chances like it did that second goal, but it can also lead to miscommunication like we've seen on other times. I would like to see him play a little bit more with Foot, but Foot is sort of bouncing around the lineup, whether it is with Hedman or McDonough or Sergachev. He's playing with everybody. I want to see a steady right-hand defenseman with Victor Hedman. Sometimes that's John Ruda, sometimes it's not. So I wonder if the Lightning, I know JBB said no trades. I'm going to say it every video. I wonder if the Lightning are going to make some sort of deal in terms of trying to get some sort of depth on the right side. But Victor Hedman's unbelievable. He masked a lot of mistakes that the Lightning make. And today, even though I thought the Lightning did make a lot of mistakes, it wasn't necessarily Hedman bailing them out. It was Vasilevsky, which is a little bit more concerning because Vasilevsky is the last line of defense. Victor Hedman, if he solves the problem, you don't have to get to the goaltender. But it also did ease up Hedman's workload a little bit.
Yeah, no question about that. Hedman is just the best defenseman in the NHL. He's just so amazing. I think Michael, the penalty kill deserves a big shout out today. They kind of struggled the last couple of games, especially last game where Chicago got 2 power play goals. But penalty kill is fantastic today. Blanking the Blackhawks. Blackhawks were 0 for 4 on the power play tonight. So the penalty kill going perfect 100%, which is awesome. They were right back to the normal thing, which is what we said in our quick strike video as well. When we did that game recap and said this is probably just a fluke for that penalty kill. And sure enough, it was. That's one thing too that I think has really helped the Lightning, because one of the problems, overall problems, which is minor in the grand scheme of things, because listen, the Lightning are first place in the league and have one of the highest goal differentials of any team. This is a really, really good team. Our problems are nothing compared to some of the other leagues like Buffalo, Detroit, Anaheim, teams like that. But I digress. The penalties, I've taken a lot of penalties. That's been one of the small issues for the Lightning. And the penalty kill has been so good at shutting down these teams' power plays. It's almost been a non-issue for the Lightning because our penalty kill is that good. Now, obviously, I would really love for them to stop taking penalties. That would be great. But the penalty kill was fantastic tonight, and really happy to see that they got right back on track.
Yeah. So with the penalty kill, I think it was a tale of two halves, I guess. The first half was the penalties that did get split up by the intermission. That always helps. And,
Of course.
I might get a lot of flack for saying this. I feel this way about Tampa. If Tampa gets a power play, I feel this way about Chicago. Chicago gets a power play. I feel this way about any other team in the NHL. I think the NHL should start moving the face-off of the opening of the period if the team is on the power play into the defensive zone of the team that's on the penalty kill.
That's interesting.
I think that would maybe increase scoring a little bit. It would allow for more power play goals, especially if there's 5, 10, 15 seconds left. You have to really make sure you get the goal before the man advantage expires. But I digress with that point. I think it did make overall it a little bit easier to kill those penalties off when it was at different parts of the period. I also will say, what a dumb penalty by Pat Maroon, taking a roughing penalty at the end of the second period. Like, I don't understand. He has played so well in some games, and then he's played really, really awful in others. And we had that streak of him playing really well. And today, I wouldn't say it was awful, but when you take a penalty like that, you should fully expect people to ask you, what are you thinking? So the Lightning were able to kill that off. And then the second half, reverting back to my original point, the 5-on-3, again, stop taking penalties. But the 5-on-3 was excellent. They were, in a word, they adapted. They made sure that Vasilevsky did not face that many shots on the 5-on-3 by sacrificing their body and clearing the puck out as many times as they could. And it is harder to do when there's only three of them instead of four. This penalty kill is unbelievable. And when they have an off day, it is sort of an alarm because they have been so good for so long. So I think last game was a bit of a, minor cause for concern, if you will. But they picked it right back up today. And while I don't think all of the penalties were equal in terms of them killing them off, that second period 5-on-3 against, which they killed off, was basically what should have been the turning point in that period. I'm not going to lie. It ended up turning to favor Chicago, but it was something that was sorely needed by the Lightning.
It's just so funny to me that this team can score 3 goals in a period, and we as Lightning fans are like, man, that really wasn't a great period. If Buffalo had that kind of period, they might frame it and play it for every other team in existence.
We
But
are not here to diss Buffalo, okay? This is not
yeah,
a Buffalo.
my point is though, I think Lightning fans have come to expect really high level of play, and that and listen, I'm not going to sit here and be one of those fans that just sits there and oh, Lightning were perfect, because they weren't. They had problems, as we have already pointed out, like the penalties. That is a major problem for the Lightning. But I do give them a lot of credit, because one thing they're really good at, as you guys just mentioned there, is they're good at making adjustments and finding ways to win, which is what good teams do. And Michael, as a great man once said, or still says actually, is that if you can't score on the 5-on-3, you're probably going to lose the game. And the Lightning very well did that and shut down the Blackhawks, didn't let the score and sure if they lost. Do you know who said that, Michael?
It's Phil Esposito's quote.
Yep, that's right. The legendary Phil Esposito. I was listening to the post-game recap on Lightning Radio, and they were talking about it there. So I thought that was fine. Might throw that in.
Yeah, overall, we are nitpicking when it comes to this team. We
No question.
really are. When people nitpick about the right defense depth, which is the second and third guy, and possibly even the guys on the bench, when they're complaining about the backup goaltender, I wouldn't say that the penalties are necessarily a nitpick. I think that's a legitimate issue,
I agree.
but we are scraping the bottom of the barrel as a fan base to try to complain about this team because they've been so good for so long. And again, most of the problems that they have are one game issues. Tonight, I did not like their second period. I thought it was legitimately awful, even though they scored 3 goals, because let's be real, Chicago's defense is awful as well. So if you get shots on goal, you're going to eventually beat Malcolm Subban. Just they struggled in their own defensive zone. Vasilevsky masked those issues by keeping them off the scoreboard in that second period. But I think that was a one game thing. If that continues, that is also a legitimate cause for concern. But as of right now, I think the Lightning are doing just fine. And if they happen to struggle a little bit, let's not pretend like it's the end of the world. This team has been so good for so long. Let's just enjoy it while we have the dominance that we do. And if we get to a point where we're like the Devils or the Sabres or another team like that, then we'll start to complain. But as of right now, Jake, do we have anything else to not complain about in this game?
Last thing I'll mention is a shout out to the centers in the faceoff circle. Lightning were over 52% or over 50% in today's game, which this is like only the second time that's happened in a while. So that was awesome to see that they were over 50%. So that was great. I think the faceoffs have been getting a lot better as of late, which is really good to see. So just happy to be back in the win column. Another win streak picking up here, 3 games in a row. Got a tough game coming up against Florida. That's going to be a real test for this team and Curtis McElhinney especially, unless Cooper maybe pulls another surprise one on us and starts Vasilevsky anyway in a back-to-back, which I highly doubt that happens. But excited for that next game. Lightning are playing well. Love to see it.
Yep, and a couple other things I want to talk about in terms of some Lightning history being made before we wrap up this episode. Mikhail Sergachev picked up his 100th career assist today, which is always nice to see. Congratulations, Mikhail. And Braden Point with his 128th goal, rocketing past Vinny Prospal and moving into ninth all-time in Tampa Bay Lightning goal scoring history. Congratulations to Braden Point. But guys, that is going to do it for us on this edition of Quick Strike. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Ring that bell for notifications. Comment down below. Let us know what you thought of this game, what you thought of my rant about the face-offs, and what else the Lightning could possibly do to enhance their team even more from what it is right now. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at Bay_Bolts. Come talk to us during the game on Twitter. We do live recaps. And guys, be sure in the description to check out our newest article. We have teamed up with a couple of Distant Thunder fans. Our first article for Distant Thunder was done by someone that is in the UK. So, very far away in terms of Distant Thunder. Welcome to the team, Paul. We're so happy to have you guys. Make sure to click that link down below, read about Paul's journey into Tampa Bay Lightning fandom. But that's going to do it for us here. For Jake Ricker, my name is Michael Wax. Thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Quick Strikes. And remember, your Tampa Bay Lightning are still defending Stanley Cup champions.
Go Bulls.